radioactive elements, poisonous chemicals, and burning substance. These are the 10 scariest things found in toys. Number 10. Uranium. People who were born during the time of the Cold War had some very unusual toys. Back then, kids were encouraged to like science, so there were many toys that followed this trend. One of such toys had the scariest element of them all, pure actual uranium. Say goodbye to boring chemistry toys of today and dive into toys that looked like the real thing done in labs. Meet the Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab, made for kids to fall in love with chemistry. After its release in 1950, lots of kids got the toys gifts from parents and family members. But there was one small problem. Each Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab came with 4 forms of uranium ore. We're talking about a chemical so dangerous that it makes choking hazards seem small. Like packing a child's plaything with uranium wasn't enough, the toy makers also threw in some beta-alpha source, a gamma source, a cloud chamber, a pure beta source, an alpha source, a manual, a spinotharoscope, a Geiger counter, and a comic book. Because why not? Although the toy maker came out to say that the toy couldn't make mushroom clouds, like real bombs, we don't know how parents took that. What we know for sure is that we don't believe anyone who gives us some random chemicals and says, "Oh, don't worry, it's not like it'll blow up in your face or something." Also, if he was so sure, why did they add a Geiger counter, which is used to measure and track radiation? Many parents didn't know they had gotten their kids a bomb kit to make the strangest thing in the basement. Although the toy was changed up a little the following year, the first version of it came in a tan case. The next one came in a red case. While they took their sweet time to change the colors, no one thought about removing the different uranium samples. Number 9. Calcium carbide and acetylene gas. We have to go back to the Austin Magic pistol to see dangerous chemicals like acetylene gas and calcium carbide. These chemicals made the toy feel like a real firearm. It came out in the 1940s and was only around for a little while. The guns were designed to shoot ping pong balls. To do this, they used chemicals that exploded. The force created by the spark was caused by a chemical reaction from mixing water with calcium carbide. That is, kids were handed toys that contained a dangerous chemical like calcium carbide. How dangerous was it, you wonder? Well, if one drop of water touches it, you get a fireball. After this happens, the chemical releases acetylene gas, which is no good. Even with adults watching over kids, the guns still shot out sparks from the tail end of the gun, which burned their wrists. The toy wasn't even safe enough for what it was made for. How sad is that? Acetylene gas catches fire easily. So having kids running around with a toy that starts fires and some flammable chemical is too much to deal with. We're surprised there weren't more fire accidents. Number 8. Scorching heat and toxic chemicals. Anyone born back in the day may be familiar with toys like the creepy crawlers. We don't mean the one that came out in the 1990s. Those were way safer and not as bad as the first ones, which were found to contain scary stuff that could hurt children. The original toy came out in 1964. It's almost like the toy makers had never heard of the word safety because the creepy crawler set was easily the worst toy in the block. Around this time, Mattel made the Thing Maker, which was like an easy bake oven, a toy stove that kids used for cooking tiny, ugly creatures with plastic goop. The molds for the goop were made from metal because why not? But what they didn't tell us was that the metal could get to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That was hot enough to burn the skin. Lots of kids got burn wounds from playing with this toy, but it didn't end there. After cooking the goop, it started to give off a chemical mist that was harmful to breathe in. Keep in mind that people didn't notice this before, so they kept buying the toys for their children. The toy maker even made other toys like that, such as fighting men and creeple people molds that helped them make different shapes. When people started to notice, they started to buy the toys less until the toy makers stopped making them altogether in 1978. But people were not satisfied, so the toy came back in 1993. It was much safer this time and didn't have the harmful smell. Surprisingly, people didn't like that. If you think that the items we talked about so far are scary, well, this is only the beginning. Now we're going to take a look at other metal spikes that can kill, chemicals that catch fire, and chemicals that can cause health problems. Number 7. Heavy, sharp metal. Imagine selling a small spear as a toy. That's exactly what lawn darts or jarts were back in the 1980s. After placing a hoop on the ground, players tried to toss some darts into it. Everyone took turns playing, but the toys were as fun as they were dangerous. One dart was 12 inches long and white heavy. Even though it was covered in plastic, there was still a sharp metal spike sticking out on one end to help hold the dart on the ground. But the ground wasn't the only thing these toys could stab into. Lots of children got injured playing with lawn darts, but one child died in 1987. It was a 7-year-old girl who took a blow from a jar to the head. The toy broke into her skull. When she was taken to the hospital, she died 3 days later. For more than 8 years, over 6,100 people had been taken to the emergency room due to lawn darts. The majority of the victims were kids under the age of 15 who were injured in their ears, faces, eyes, and heads. Some even became disabled. Number 6, battery or electricity. Batteries don't seem like a scary thing to find in a toy, but they can be. Toys that came with batteries can be harmful to your child. For one, the batteries could blow up, heat up, or start to leak. And since they're made of chemicals, it puts children in harm's way. So you have to be careful about the type of battery-powered toys you give your kids, especially if they are less than 8 years of age. Also, toys that run on electricity are also dangerous. We don't have to tell you why electricity is bad for kids. They could be electrocuted or worse. If you can't teach your kids to use these toys, it's best not to buy them at all. The risk is just too much. Number 5, lead, chromium, and phthalates. Dollar bin toys are often used to fill stockings for Christmas. They're cheap and can be great finds sometimes. However, these cheap toys are not the best gifts for your child. A lot of them contain harmful chemicals like phthalates, chromium, and lead, which can affect a child for a long time. And it's not just them. They're cheap toys in general. Toys from discount stores usually contain one or all of these chemicals because they come from the same place, a large market for cheap stuff in China. Whether it's wall stickers, silly straws, or jewelry, the toxic chemicals in them are too scary to be given to a child. Number 4, magnets. Magnets were part of many toys back in the day, and they still make an appearance now too. But they aren't the best things to use as toys, and may be scary when you see what they can do to little kids. The biggest example we have of magnets gone bad is magnetics, which is a building set made from little string magnets. Kids started to swallow the magnets, which broke off easily, and that's when problems started. Unlike other tiny things that should be passed out in a number 2, the magnets got stuck in the digestive system. In fact, some of them started to connect in the body. This means that vital organs were blocked and food couldn't move properly. For one Kenny Sweet in 2005, this meant death after swallowing 9 magnets that connected in his bowels. During that time, at least 34 kids died or were injured by toys with magnets. Starting out, things get serious. It's now time to look at a chemical that can cause cancer, a chemical that can lead to poisoning and other illnesses, and finally, a chemical used in drugs that can knock people out. Number 3, asbestos. In 2007, alarm bells were ringing over the CSI fingerprint examination kit. The toy took after the TV show from CBS called CSI Crime Scene Investigation. It was supposed to make kids look like they could take part in a police case with brushes and powder to dust for fingerprints. The scariest part of the toy was found when we found out that the powder was made from asbestos. When people spoke out about it, the toy maker did nothing and continued selling it. It wasn't until the Asbestos Disease Awareness Organization made a case that sales stopped. If you don't know why asbestos is bad, it's because it can cause cancer and other diseases. Number 2, lead. Lead is number 2 on the list of harmful household chemicals in the world. It can cause fatigue, body aches, and other problems in the body. Experts say that toys should not come with more than 40 parts per million lead. But there are toys that go over that limit without question. One of such toys is the Hannah Montana Pop Star card game, which comes with more than 75 times the required amount. If you can't do the math, it's 3,000 parts per million. That's huge. Studies tell us that many toys we buy come with harmful chemicals, cadmium, arsenic, and lead. It's not safe for kids. It's almost scary that we're even alive. Now on to the moment you've all been waiting for. Number 1, date rape drugs. In 2007, aquadots entered our lives. They were tiny beads that came in a lot of colors. You could arrange them in a certain way to build stuff and then sprinkle it with water to set. It was like the Lego of water beads, so it became popular in no time. What we weren't ready for, though, was the comas, faintings, and throwing up that we started to see in children that ate or swallowed the beads. It turns out the toy contained the chemical gamma-hydroxybutyrate, GHB, the date rape drug. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon.